been there.
Have you done it too?
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my God, it's so painful.
Yeah.
Well, Taryn, thank you so much for joining me on the ODAT Chad podcast.
Thank you for having me. This has been a long time coming, and I've been really excited to connect with you. So thank you.
You're so sweet, and I appreciate your patience and persistence as well. But like we were talking about, I feel like everything happens when it's supposed to, so it's all good. Yeah. And actually, I think the timing is great because of recent events that you and I were just discussing. There seems to be this, I love it when women support other women. And I feel like I see that seems to be like the core of your SheRecovers group. There's is there like 300,000 women on there now?
That's right. Yeah.
Did you guys cross the line? Are you hovering or?
We on Facebook, we're at about, I think we've been hovering at about 275,000, but then on Instagram, we are at about, 30 or 35 maybe collectively.
Wow. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is just amazing. I mean, to build a tribe, and maybe I'll have to ask you about that towards the end because I have so much I want to ask you about. But I just think that's an amazing accomplishment and a testament to you and your mom, who's actually been on the podcast, that y'all have created such a safe space for women who are recovering from many things, right? I don't know one person who's only recovering from one thing. Do you?
No. And if they say they are, they're in deep, deep denial. They just don't know yet. But yeah, thank you. It's all happened organically. The intention was not for SheRecovers to evolve into what it is today. It's all been organic, and we have just been following our intuition and listening to what the women in our community want and need. And clearly there is a hunger and a need for our messaging and what we've been saying. So it's been really beautiful.
It is. What would you say is the core of your message?
Well, I would say where we began and where we started was just by sharing, like you just touched on, we're all recovering from something. So we find from surveys, my mom is PhD and she's very intelligent and she loves data and she loves research. So we've done some studies and some research, and we have found that about 75 to 80% of the women in our community identify as being in recovery from substance use disorder, as well as a bunch of other things. But the other 25, let's say, percent, they identify as being in recovery from codependency or grief, anxiety, depression, trauma, eating disorders, etc. But we really wanted to create an environment where all women are welcome, because we know the power of women gathering, right? And so much healing happens when we just collectively come together and we allow ourselves to be seen and heard and allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And we also know that for some of us, such as me, for example, substances are something that maybe we used to cope, but not everybody does. The underlying stuff underneath the substances is usually the same stuff, trauma, mental health stuff, behavioral health stuff. So we're all recovering from something. And something that we've been really focusing on sharing as loudly as possible recently is that we have to be supported to find and follow individualized pathways and patchworks of recovery, because we really also have seen and heard and acknowledge the importance of anyone, but of course I'm talking about women, of women being able to have agency and decide how they want to recover and what tools they want to use to recover. Because there's not just one way. Every woman is different and everybody's going to need something different. So we actually, if you go to our website, we have 10 intentions and guiding principles, but those are the two main ones that we really have been focusing on recently.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you to recite them, but I will direct people to the website, which is sherecovers.co.
That's right.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah. And I love that you guys have a coaching program. And, I feel like I just love the intention of creating, there are so many people who are suffering, right? And there are so many women. I feel like it's a woman thing where we want to nurture and help and rescue. And I think that's why women, I don't know somebody who suffers from substance use disorder that doesn't have a small degree of codependency.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently it's a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it seems like anyone with addiction has some sort of codependency issue. But, we're taught to turn our defects into assets. And so that's what I see in SheRecovers is women helping other women. And I like the idea of a coaching program because it's too much for just a small number of people to reach out and help others. So I love the idea of the coaching program too, and the support that you give your coaches to pursue their purpose, which is amazing. Okay, but I had to write down patchwork of recovery. That is so, I don't know, that just struck me. That is amazing. And there are different modalities of healing. And I thought we'd play a little game before we jump into your story, because everyone wants to know, like, it's good to qualify,
Sure.
But I thought we'd play a little game called Different Modalities of Healing. And I'll just rattle off a bunch of things and you can say yes or no.
Okay.
And we'll circle back. So 12-step?
No.
Service?
Yes.
Yoga?
Yes.
EMDR?
No.
Okay. Talk therapy?
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to put prayer and meditation on one line.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, I went to the SheRecovers event in Beverly Hills. Fabulous. Oh my God. And Sarah Blondin was there. Mm-hmm. Oh, I fell in love with Sarah Blondin.
Is she incredible? Have you found her on Insight Timer yet? So those who are listening, if you don't have Insight Timer yet, it's a free meditation app. You can download on your phone, find Sarah Blondin, and her guided meditations are so powerful and healing.
So powerful. I don't even know how to put it into words. So I went through, so my husband and I moved out of state to our new home now. But the period of transition was a long one. It was a year long, and I had so much anxiety about leaving my recovery community and my family and all this stuff. I couldn't sleep. So I don't even know how I found her on iTunes, but Live Awake is there. And if you start at the beginning, it will cycle through all of her podcast episodes. Amazing. And I would fall asleep listening to her podcast episodes, and her words are just so loving and healing that's how I slept.
Great. That's so wonderful.
Okay. So, prayer and meditation's big, and ayahuasca therapy.
Yes. Ayahuasca. Yes.
Yes. What other different modalities have you used that I haven't mentioned?
Well, another one of our intentions guiding principles is really the idea of having a holistic approach to recovery. So body, mind, and spirit. So I love how you've covered all of those with your questions. So for me, it has really been a mashup of yoga, a lot of yoga. For me, movement is healing and movement is medicine. So yoga and dance, essential oils really are important for me. I use them all day, every day, because in any given moment, I know that I have these tools, the wisdom of the plants, to help me shift anything that's coming up for me emotionally. Talk therapy. I'm going to try hypnotherapy next week for the first time. I haven't tried it before.
When are you doing it?
I'm doing it in a week, next Monday. So I'll let you know how that goes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm doing EMDR for the first time on Monday.
Okay. Well, we'll have to compare notes.
Yes,
I'm very curious about EMDR. I've heard nothing but brilliant things about it.
Yeah.
I love acupuncture as well. For me, I don't know if this counts, but having a morning routine is really important. So waking up super early and meditating. And I like to pull a tarot card from my tarot deck or an oracle card. I dance in the morning. I make a nice cup of cacao because I don't drink coffee anymore. I cut out coffee a few years ago because I was using it in ways that didn't seem very healthy. Connection with other women is so important to me. Like,
Connection.
and luckily my job, quotation marks, can't believe this is my job, but just being with other women, gathering with other women is really important. Spending time with my 4-year-old niece is totally a part of my recovery because she reminds me of the importance of presence. And also a lot of inner child healing has come about for me since Marley's come into our lives. Ayahuasca is something that I introduced a year ago. And again, it's been really powerful for inner child healing and reparenting stuff and a lot of childhood trauma that I have talked about in talk therapy for probably 20 years. But ayahuasca is something that helped me really move through it and past it. What else? Yeah, I just like to work with the cycles of the moon as well and the rhythms of nature and be outside the ocean whenever I can. I live in Victoria, British Columbia, so I have a beautiful ocean really close by. Travel is a part of my recovery as well. It's really important for me that I I love routine, but I also need to explore and travel as well. Reading, writing.
Oh, journaling.
Journaling.
How did I miss that one?
Yeah, morning pages are my favorite, where I just free flow write 3 pages. Yeah, Julia Cameron.
Do you really
I
do
don't
3
punctuate
pages?
or anything. I do 3.
Like 3 pages front and back, or what?
Front and back. But I guess that's maybe 1.5 pages, depending how you look at it.
I see. Okay.
But it's just more. It feels like more like a brain dump. Like I just get it onto my paper. But
yeah.
That
is, it's so funny. I just feel like we're so high maintenance.
Getting
into recovery.
All day, every day. Seriously, all day, every day. I'm constantly working on my recovery. Yeah. All day, every day. And it's sometimes I catch myself having those moments of being like, oh my gosh, this is exhausting.
Sometimes.
But it lasts half a second, and then I'm just so grateful and really grateful for the privilege that I have to have access to all of these resources that I have access to, so I can recover in the way that feels nourishing for me.
Nourishing. I love that word. Yeah. And I love that idea, the patchwork of recovery, because there are so many different things that we have available to us, and they come up in different times. Like, I've been sober for 25 years. I'm just starting EMDR because I didn't think I qualified. I was like, oh, that's for people who've had like violent trauma or stuff. But I have childhood sexual issues that I was like, oh, that didn't count. How did I think that didn't count? But
totally.
Yeah. No, I'm excited.
I find we find some things, sorry to interrupt. We find certain things when we're ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So.
Yeah. And it's not like I haven't done any work around that, but it's that spiral, right? It's like we keep coming back to the same things, but in a different place or in a different way, because I find that every single one of these modalities that we were just discussing changes me. So every time I address the issue, something new comes up because I'm different every time. I'm like a different person every time I address it. So,
exactly.
Lots of different modalities. Maybe we should take a step back and talk a little bit about how you got here. I know your mom's been in recovery for a long time, and I listened to a recent episode of yours where you talked about some traumatic experiences around your dad experiencing a violent situation. But do you want to just give a little condensed version of how you got here?
Yeah, for sure. So the Coles notes are, I have parents who, when the first few years of my life, I guess until I was age 4, my parents were really active in their addictions, and they were also dealing drugs. So you can imagine the chaos that was the first 4 years of my life. Wow. I thought, this is kind of a side note, like you had said, I didn't know that really affected me. I thought because I was so young and I didn't really remember a lot of the things, that it didn't affect me, until I had a therapist say, maybe mentally you don't remember, but energetically you remember. Your body remembers, which I know, right? I mean, I teach trauma-informed yoga. It's a big part of what we do, or a part of what we do. And I know that, like a doctor says, that the body keeps a score. So the first 4 years of my life, very chaotic and unhealthy. My parents were wrapped up in their things. My dad, he would get in cocaine-induced rage, and he's the sweetest, most gentle man now, but there was domestic violence with my mom, and that was the first 4 years of my life. But luckily, my mom had the strength to go to treatment and to find recovery. So she's been in recovery for decades now, 30 years, I guess now.
Over 30 years.
For 30 years. And the way that she entered recovery, I mean, this was the 80s, was a 12-step program. So that's all that there was. She had treatment and she had 12-step program. So that was her path. So I actually grew up in a 12-step home.
Okay.
I grew up, and some of my earliest memories are attending 12-step meetings and the campouts and the different events, because my mom was very, very committed to her program. So a lot of people are often surprised to hear that I am in recovery from substance use disorder and self-harm and disordered eating and trauma and, oh my gosh, the list could go on and on. Low self-esteem, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, blank, all those things. But so a lot of people are surprised to hear that, because they assume that having parents in recovery would mean that maybe I chose the path of fully recovering my whole life. But when I was a preteen and a teenager, I did start to dabble in self-harm, and then of course introduce substances into my life. But for me, I didn't like alcohol or marijuana at a young age. I kept trying to like it, but I didn't like it. I really had this curiosity about cocaine because I knew that it's what was my parents' drug of choice, and I was just fascinated by it. So I somehow, as a 16-year-old girl, because none of my friends were doing it, I somehow managed to locate it. And I very quickly became addicted to it. And I started dating the 17-year-old crack dealer and ran away from home to live with him. And we were we were doing everything. And the cocaine quickly shifted into meth because it was more affordable, right, for us teenage children. Wow. But then luckily I had a moment, I had my awakening, and I had that moment where I realized that this is scary. I'm going to die. There's only one way that this path is taking me. And I knew, because I had known that recovery is possible. And because through this entire ordeal, my parents, because they were in recovery, they were able to be present, and they were able to be strong, and they were able to lean on their community. So through all of that, when I was in my awakening moment, I knew that I could go home and everything would be okay. I knew I was going to be in a lot of trouble. I knew there were going to be consequences because I ran away and hid from them. They didn't know where I was. They had moments where they thought I was dead, right?
How long were you gone for?
It was different times. I ran away a few different times. So I actually can't remember. We'd have to ask Mom. It's so blurry for me that time in my life. But I knew I could go home, and I knew that there would be consequences, but that I was loved unconditionally, and that there wouldn't be any shame. I had so much shame because here's the thing. I was the kid nobody suspected. I was an honor roll student. I was a competitive Irish dancer who was winning all my competitions, coming home with medals every time. I was a Royal Conservatory of Music pianist. I was just this nerdy kid who just loved school and loved dancing and loved piano. So nobody suspected that I would take the path that I did. And I think I was the most surprised of all. So I already had so much shame of, how did this happen? How did I get here? I know better. But I went home, and my parents then, what we knew to do is they did bring me to 12-step meetings and got me into therapy. And that got me back on back on the path and back on track.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually for a few years, from like 17 until 20, I was substance free. And I never claimed to be in recovery, but I just didn't partake anymore. And I just really I scared myself so much, I didn't want to go back there. And then, though, and I didn't know this at the time, but looking back on it, and I'll wrap up here, when I was 20, the day of my 20th birthday, my mom got diagnosed with colon cancer. And she was actually within an hour of her death. She had to have an emergency surgery.
Oh my God.
And the doctor said if they would have waited another hour, she wouldn't be here. So that was traumatizing. And we also didn't think that she was going to live. She was almost stage 4, and the doctor,
Wow.
we just didn't get a very positive news prognosis. Thank you. Yeah. So, I was trying to process the thought of being a 20-year-old woman who was going to be losing her mother. So I started drinking. My sister and we started drinking. Well, she used to drink. She doesn't anymore, but what I can look at now is we started drinking together to cope. But at the same time, what I was telling myself was, oh, I'm just doing what a 20-year-old girl does. This is what we do. We go out on the weekends and we drink. But my drinking it didn't look like others. Like I didn't really know how to stop. And then one time, the drugs were in my experience, like were around me. And because I was under the influence of alcohol, I had no filter. So then I did cocaine again for about a year and a half. But anyways, that's the Coles Notes. In recovery now. So grateful, so excited. And now, as you know, I have a broad patchwork of different modalities and different things that I do to stay grounded and present.
Yeah. And what happened the last go? Like, did something happen where you decided, okay, I need to go practice abstinence again?
Oh, yes. I had so much shame because I was teaching yoga for recovery, this recovery yoga program that I had developed. And we had started doing retreats with SheRecovers.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I had so much shame about that. And I never, the way that I had lied to myself was I never lied to anyone else. When women would ask me what I'm in recovery from, I would say codependency, trauma, disordered eating, blah, 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 blah. And when women would ask me if I drank, I would say, yes, I do. But I told them, because I convinced myself that I was a normie, and nobody followed up with the question of, oh, do you do other drugs as well? So I never had to lie
about the drugs.
No one asked me, why would they, right? Nobody would even. So I was just, it was just like so horrible. The shame and the self-loathing and it was just the worst. So I just realized that I wasn't in alignment and I wasn't in integrity. And that although I kept comparing myself to 16-year-old Taryn. I wasn't doing it every day. I was just kind of binging here and there.
Right.
So I was just comparing myself to 16-year-old Taryn and being like, oh, well, I'm not that bad. I still have everything under control. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But we're so good at lying to ourselves and convincing ourselves of whatever, right?
Yeah. And I just have so much empathy for that place because we're just doing the best that we can, right? And it's easy to fall off the beam.
Yes.
Recovery requires such constant diligence. My sponsor's always pointing out how quickly the ego repairs itself. And, we start thinking that we can do it. And for me, my underlying thing was not trusting God, something I still struggle with after 25 years. I don't want people to think that just because you get into recovery doesn't mean that you don't still struggle with things, but you can still doubt God. You can still have low self-esteem. You can still have all these other things and maintain abstinence and maintain sort of like you were talking about, like a morning ritual. It's like a lifestyle of, self-care and in a way that helps you to evolve to wherever you need to be. You know, it's different for everyone.
Exactly. And taking it, like for me, I've switched it from, okay, thinking about it as, oh, these are my daily routines, which they are. But now I think of it as, these are my daily devotions. These are my daily devotions that I do, not only to devote myself, self-love, but also for my higher power and everyone around me. And that little mindset shift has been really powerful and helpful.
Yeah, it's the little shifts that change the entire trajectory of
Exactly.
our lives. I hate to use a golf analogy, but it's so good. I don't know if you've ever attempted, but you know, the head of the golf club, everyone's seen one, right? The head of the golf club is this big. And if you just change the angle a fraction, it changes the entire trajectory of the ball. And I feel like in recovery, and if you've ever tried to play golf, it's infuriating because you don't know what you're doing wrong. And it takes somebody else on the outside going, oh, you're pulling the club in at the bottom of your swing, and that's why it's shanking.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like so much of recovery is just those little tiny tweaks in mindset. And I think we sort of discount the like prayer and meditation because it's so easy, it's free, and I think we're taught to struggle for anything good.
Exactly. Yeah.
But when in recovery is about being in flow, and so it can be very. I got to tell you though, when I took your yoga class at the SheRecovers event, you know, and I think you even mentioned, you know, the issues are in the tissues, and we did this stretching exercise, and you mentioned that you were talking about the hips, and if you're tight on one side, it meant that you have like patriarchal issue, like daddy issues, basically. I don't remember how you
Yeah.
put it, but I just thought that was fascinating and true, by the way.
Yes. Yes, it always seems to resonate. So the right side of our body is associated with our masculine energy. So,
Oh, really?
and then the left side is our feminine. So when we can joke about is if you haven't, and it may maybe not funny, but on the right side of our body, you know, people may find that if, let's use the hip as an example, if they always have chronic right hip pain or hip tightness, it's like, okay, well, what is your relationship like with either your masculine energy or the masculine energies in your life? So maybe if you have a male partner or a son or your dad, and it can be any type of stagnation or unresolved issues that are stored in the right side of your body. And then the same is true for the left side of the body. So yeah, I love to share that because it always resonates with women, and they'll always come up to me and be like, oh my gosh, left shoulder, totally, it's my mom stuff. And then they'll focus on working through their mom stuff, and then they'll send me a message, and they'll have found ease and freedom in their left shoulder, for example, from working through the mom stuff, right? So
Mind-body connection is just fascinating.
So totally. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I don't know a whole lot about oils. I don't really understand how to use them.
Yes.
And how they help. Maybe you can kind of enlighten me on that part.
Absolutely, yeah. So an essential oil, basically what an essential oil is every plant produces them. And I think of them as what the plant produces to be its immune system. So every plant produces essential oils to help keep itself healthy, to help either attract pollinators or to keep insects or animals away. And what we now are so lucky is people have figured out, they figured out a long time ago, how to distill and how to extract the essential oil from the plant. So when we're using essential oils, we're getting all of the benefits from the plant that it would have used as its immune system. So there are different ways. Now, I will be fully transparent. I am a doTERRA wellness advocate. So I love and trust doTERRA products because they're the best quality, truly. And their sourcing initiatives are really powerful and they really give back. So you can look, anyone who's interested can look into that.
doTERRA, how do you spell that?
doTERRA is DOTERRA. And anyone listening, you, Arlena, anyone is more than welcome to anytime reach out. If you ever have questions, I'm happy to help. I'm also a certified aromatherapist. So what I love about essential oils is they all have different chemical compounds. And actually, what pharmaceuticals are the synthetic versions of the chemical compounds found in plants.
Okay.
Scientists were seeing all of the benefits from these plants. They figured out what the chemical compounds were in the plants, made the synthetic version of them, and that's how we now have medicine and all the
Big
different
pharma.
pharmaceuticals. Yeah, exactly, big pharma. So each essential oil, as you can imagine, they have different chemical compounds, they have different benefits. So when I say in any given moment, if you're needing to change or shift anything, you can. If you're feeling anxious, there's that funny meme, but it's true, there's an oil for that. If you're anxious, you can use an oil. You can either just smell it out of the bottle, you can diffuse it, you can dilute it with the carrier oil and apply it to your skin. And sometimes, in some cases, with doTERRA, for example, because it has to be the best quality without any fillers in it or chemicals in it, certain oils you can actually ingest and you can take internally as well.
Can we talk about different oils to heal different things? Like, for instance, what would you use for anxiety?
For anxiety, you could use something as simple as good old lavender. Lavender is really calming and really soothing.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could think of using any of the essential oils that come from trees. So cedarwood, black spruce, vetiver, it's actually a sap. Frankincense is a resin, but those are really grounding, right? So if you think of forest bathing is really popular right now, where people are saying, walk in the forest because it helps with anxiety, it helps with depression, and it supports all sorts of things. Well, if you smell an essential oil, I have one here out of a bottle, or diffuse it, our brain doesn't actually know the difference between us walking through a forest or not.
Wow.
Our brain is, the chemicals, the molecules are going to our brain, and our brain thinks we're in a forest. So we get all the same benefits just from smelling the oil.
I'm so excited to get some from you.
Right? Yeah.
What, do you have a website in case people want to buy stuff?
Yeah. You can go to mydoterra.com /SheRecovers.
/SheRecovers.
Or you can just go on the doTERRA website, doTERRA.com, and at some point it will ask you who sells the oils, and you can say Taryn Strong if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Please feel free, anyone to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely want people to support you.
Oh, thank you.
That is awesome. I'm totally going to try that. And I've had friends that swear by it, and I'm like, okay, I'll just put that on my to-do list. And
yeah, I joke, but it's true. It's not my new addiction, because I've been obsessed with them for about 3 years, but it is an addiction. Yeah. And I have everyone in my life addicted to them too, but they really work. And every single day I get messages from women saying, wow, I've been battling migraines my entire life. I used peppermint on my temples, and 15 minutes later, my migraine was gone.
Are you serious?
I just got that email yesterday. Dead serious. Every day I'm getting messages like that. It's so beautiful just to reconnect with nature in that way, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, and that's what I'm all about, is trying to help people out of their suffering. So there's so many different things, and sometimes it can be kind of overwhelming, right? There are so many things to try, and we change over time. So I think it's easy to try something at one phase of your life and decide it doesn't work, and then rule it out forever. So I always joke around, I'll try anything twice, but it's true, because you just never know when things are going to help. So good to be open-minded about that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then I kind of wanted to switch gears with a little bit of time that we have left about this patchwork of recovery that you were talking about. And people are so passionate about different ways of recovery. And I grew up in 12-step, and not in the way that you did. I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 25. My mom had dated somebody when I was 14 who had gone there. And so when I got into trouble, I like hit a bottom. Like, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I knew I needed help. I didn't know about rehabs 25 years ago. I guess it wasn't super common, or I just had my head in the clouds. But I had a really bad experience with my sister, and there was a 2-year period where I was questioning my drinking, And it took me a long time to process the idea of alcoholism and drug addiction. And, Annie Grace talks about how the rooms, like the barrier to entry is so high because it's admitting that you're an alcoholic. And I just couldn't get there. So it took me 2 years of additional suffering to finally show up there and surrendered. But when I surrendered, I was all in. I don't do anything in half measures. So, for 25 years that has sustained me, I found, we talked about service and community, and I found all those things there. I found all the good things. So I feel super grateful and lucky, but I don't have any problem with people finding other ways. And I just feel like people are so, I get that people are scared, right? And I'm sure you see that all the time. It's like, we see people die. You and you have purview over a lot of people. So I know you see people perish and it's scary. So people get very legalistic and religious about 12 step. But I feel like it's okay to have a discussion about what works and what doesn't work. And I think we recently in the community saw a couple of articles come out, one by Holly Whitaker that was posted in the New York Times. And, she spoke about her experience that wasn't largely positive. And then Veronica Valley came out and had another article about the misconceptions. And I love Veronica's article because it was sort of I'm passionate about 12 step, but I know it doesn't work for everyone. And I see how people could get so super, but there needs to be, we need to be able to talk about it without, without character assassination, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's been really, I did a video actually a few days ago in
I
our
saw
group,
it.
SheRecovers group, because it's been devastating and disappointing to see woman. And I said this, as you saw, it's woman after woman. Like it's the only arguments that I'm seeing about this discussion are women. I'm not seeing men arguing over this. It's just women attacking each other for speaking their truth or sharing their stories. And it's just, I don't understand why. I feel like it's been a really big distraction from what's really important. And I feel like all of the energy that has been going into these debates and arguments, it's really, the recovery community, the women's recovery community, I should say, has felt really divided. And I feel like all of that energy is energy that could have and should be focused on ourselves, first of all, because that's energy that is just distracting somebody from their own work and distracting from what's really important, which is we should just be supporting each other. Another one of our taglines is connect, support, empower. And any argument or debate that isn't in alignment with connecting, supporting, and empower has no space in the recovery community. And like you talked about, like women are dying. So we don't have the time or the luxury to be sitting on the internet arguing with each other about whose way to recover is better than the other. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be so individual, and we need to allow women to have the agency to figure it out for themselves, because what works for one, as we know, doesn't work for the other, and that is okay.
Yeah. It pains me to see people suffer, right? Like that's my whole thing is I'm trying to help people out of suffering. At the same time, and like the whole Super Bowl thing where, J-Lo and Shakira went out there and did their thing. I was a dancer when I was younger, not a stripper, but like you, I did Mexican folk dancing. My mother's from Mexico City. Yes, you have like that cultural dancing thing too, which I didn't know we had that connection. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So here's where like I had feelings about Holly's article, but I had a feeling about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I did not take to the public airways to condemn her because that's not my get down. But I had a feeling about it. and whatever. I'm sort of like criticized privately, praised publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, Holly was brave enough to share things that she was not comfortable with. And she started a discussion. So I'm so grateful for the discussion. Where I feel funny is that what do we do? What it's like I had to ask myself, what do I do with these feelings I'm having about an attack? It kind of felt like there were certain points that felt like an attack on something that really helped me, that saves lots of lives. And so there's this conflict, but at the end of the day, I respect other people's process, right? And the root to the word respect means to think again, or to reconsider. And so when I'm presented with information that makes me uncomfortable, I got to think about it again. It's like, oh, yeah, not everybody has that same experience that I had, and that's sad, but also grateful that she has been able to help facilitate recovery for so many women who had that same experience. Right.
Exactly.
And then don't
Absolutely.
comment, we're in the post Me Too movement where men are not allowed to speak on women's things. And you and I are sort of saturated in women's recovery. I don't know if you have a lot of exposure, but so it's sort of just like an observation. It's like, yeah, it is women having the issue, and because it's about us, but but I don't like the tactics that some people use in debating, which is, oh, you're just a hater,
Mm-hmm.
right? That shuts somebody down. Or like with the Super Bowl thing, saying, oh, throwing out the race card, oh, you're a racist, or you're a woman. I mean, that does not allow any respect for somebody who's having a feeling about what they saw. Like, I know lots of people who were like so offended about the crotch shots and all that. And there was a little part of me that was all, oh, look at that. But yeah, I mean, what do you think? There's got to be a place for both sides, right?
There does. I mean, I think that, I guess there's the pros and the cons of living in an age now where we have these tools and these technologies where we can speak our truth. I think that we just need to maybe be more thoughtful and more mindful when we're speaking our truth, or when we're taking in someone else's truth. And just to realize that, everybody's just speaking from, like you shared already, people are just speaking from where they're at, and we are perceiving things from where we're at.
Yeah.
And I think we all just need to calm down. I don't know. I think we all just need to calm down. I think that a lot of these things are designed to keep us confused and to keep us distracted. Because if we're confused and if we're distracted, then we're stuck in that loop and that cycle that the systems want us to be stuck in. And instead, like I talked about earlier, instead we could be clear and present and just really, when we like you've done, which is so beautiful. And thank you for speaking to that. When you just check in and you're like, okay, I'm having a feeling. And then just recognize, okay, this is a feeling. What can I learn from this feeling that I am having, instead of projecting it out? I think we just need to practice the pause when we feel triggered or reactive. Just pause, check in with yourself, and breathe. And maybe log off, right? Like, log off, spend less time on social media. Like, I actually don't know anything about the Super Bowl. All that I know is that Shakira and J-Lo and Demi Lovato performed. That's all I know. I have no idea what anybody's talking about with all these arguments I'm seeing. I have no idea. And I'm like, thank God I don't know. Because that seems like a lot of energy that people are wasting on whatever J-Lo and Shakira did or did not do. I don't know.
Yeah.
So those things take me out of my path and my recovery and my devotion.
Yeah. And you've used the word distraction a few times, and
Mm-hmm.
really, I feel like that's sort of like at the root of addiction, is that it's a distraction from what we don't want to feel, right?
Completely.
And, there was a lot of we joke about, oh, we just need to relax. But I almost feel like Marianne Williams said if she could condense the entire Course in Miracles into one word, it would be relax,
Mm.
not in a
Yeah.
hateful way. Cause like, I think as women, we hear men be like, you need to relax. You're
Right.
too
Yeah.
sensitive, and that's like, oh,
No. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna go crazy now.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
they're
Try that
creeping.
again.
Yeah. I'm gonna go troll
Yeah.
you.
Well, and
But
thanks for bringing up Course in Miracles, because it's about, love over fear as well. Just
yeah,
love over fear, and not
yeah.
not in a way of spiritually bypassing, because I think I see a lot in the
Oh,
spiritual
that's a
community
good
right
one.
now.
Do you
Love
want to
and
talk a
light.
little,
Yeah.
explain what spiritual bypassing is? Because that was a term I just kind of came into this year. What does it mean to
Yeah.
you?
Spiritually bypassing is when people or somebody uses, like, the idea is, just for example, like love and light, and we are all one, so we just need to love everybody. That's spiritually bypassing, because yes, we are all one, and yes, it is important that we have an open heart, but we also have to have boundaries, for example, and we also have to look at our shadow side.
Yes.
Right? We need to do the light work, and we need to do the shadow work.
Look at
And
shadow.
I think that, and please pardon me because I'm not in a 12-step program, but it's like in the program where you kind of unpack your defects.
Mm-hmm.
That's shadow work. That's not spiritually bypassing. That's like unpacking all the layers of yourself, and not just trying to just ignore and pretend that other things aren't happening, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like, the spiritual bypassing is when my son broke his back over the summer, and that's when I learned the term. And he's fine.
Right.
You hear broken back, and you think spinal cord injury, but that's not what happened to him. But it was a traumatic experience for me as his mom.
Sure.
But I did spiritual bypassing, where I was like, oh, thank God he's fine. He's okay. Could have been worse, blah, blah, blah. Totally bypassed all my negative feelings.
Yeah.
I just shoved that shit down. It's like, oh, don't want to feel that. And then it came out later, and someone's like, oh, that's spiritual bypassing. It's like, you think you can use spirituality to skip over the negative feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But what you were talking about was doing the shadow work, because we need to stay in balance. It's what you're really talking about is like validating our feelings,
Exactly.
the negative ones, and the experience, and processing to resolution. So I just thought that was a really interesting term, the whole spiritual bypassing thing.
Yeah. Another great term I've heard of that you might like, you've probably heard, is toxic positivity.
Oh, I have not heard that.
Toxic positivity. And it's so true. It's like, when we were just talking about how when a dude is like, oh, just relax, you're just being sensitive. That's not helpful. That's the opposite of helpful. And sometimes if you're going through some shit and you reach out to somebody and you open up about it, and they just, oh, well, just think positive thoughts, or they're just so positive about it instead of allowing you to be really heard and seen in all of the layers, that's toxic. It's not actually helpful all the time. Of course it is. We need to have positive thoughts and all of that, but there is a fine line of just honoring all of the different aspects of our experience.
Don't you find that we have to acknowledge and validate the guilt and the shame and all that stuff first, and then we can move to
Exactly.
solution?
100%. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Toxic positivity. I had not heard that one. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm guilty. I'm all speaking from experience, because when I started my spiritual path and when I discovered yoga 14, 15, 16 years ago, whenever that was, I became someone who spiritually bypassed and just tried to just think and vision board my way through life. And it only worked certain times and for certain things in certain ways.
Time and a place, huh?
Time and a place. That's right.
Right. I love me a vision board. Somebody just asked me last night. I was sharing with a friend about a vision board, and she was like, "What's that?" And I was like, You don't know what a vision board Do you want to share a little bit about what a vision board is and how you use it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, I haven't made one in so long, but I love them. So vision board, you can find any type of medium that you prefer. You can do a collage on your computer these days, or you can actually make an art project out of it. And it's where you put images or words on a board, for example.
Like a poster
And
board.
a poster board, yeah. And these images and these words are in alignment with your vision or your intention or your dreams, your goals, whatever you're wanting to manifest, whatever you're wanting to bring into your life and call into your life. And you keep this board somewhere where you can see it every day.
Yeah.
And then one day you're going to look at your board and you're going to be like, wow, holy shit, there, it's all here. Yeah. And for me, I have found that the things on my board that when I've done vision boards, for example, they have all manifested. They've all happened. None of them happened in the way that I actually thought they would, right? Like the path to get to them wasn't always smooth or easy. Sometimes there was a lot of heartache, a lot of chaos, a lot of ups and downs to get to that thing. Or you might look at your board one day and be like, I was playing small, or I was thinking small, and something grander beyond your wildest dreams has surfaced in your life, which is really cool too.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, I'm very careful about what I put on the vision board and what the intention is behind it now, because I've done vision boards over the years and they are a powerful tool for manifesting. And it really feels like it's rooted in the intention.
Totally. Be careful what you wish for. I've learned that too. Be careful what you wish for. And the thing with the images and the words is we're working with our subconscious. So that's why it's so powerful, is because we're moving beyond the conscious and into the subconscious.
Yeah, which is what is so fascinating to me about the ayahuasca therapy is like, it sounds like, I haven't done it and I'm not sure I'm allowed to, but it goes right to the subconscious to sort of reprogram those negative beliefs, which is where we're operating from, is from the subconscious. So that's a really powerful tool. I'm glad you mentioned that one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, gosh, we covered a lot of ground.
We did, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being so open to talk about all these things. And for anyone who is interested in hearing more about your ayahuasca experience, you did a podcast about it, which I thought was so enlightening. I've had several friends go through it recently. It just seems to be in my purview lately. It's just, I know it's used to treat severe addiction and trauma and stuff like that. And I know that MAPS, I forget what MAPS stands for, but it's, the psychiatric community is really starting to, I know there's FDA trials going on right now. So yeah, you had an amazing podcast on that. Do you also have an online yoga group that our friend Jennifer comes to? She told me to say hi.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Yes, I have an online yoga membership that you can find through SheRecovers.co, and you can try it for the first month for free to see if online yoga is something that you'll want to do. But basically what it is it's yoga for recovery. It's trauma-informed yoga classes taught by me. So there's a library of classes that you have unlimited access to. I add classes to it every single month. And once a month, we have a live gathering, and it's just it's like a casual sharing circle. We do a little bit of meditation. I do some journal prompts, and then we do a sharing circle. And for those who can't make the live gather, it's online, I should say, live gathering online via Zoom. We record it. So it's just a really nice way to do some trauma-informed yoga from the comfort of your home.
Love it.
Love it. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Well, listen, I will leave links to all the resources that you shared. And I just so appreciate you. You are adorable. I love you and your mom and all the work that you're doing. And I'm so grateful that you get to live your passion. It's really inspiring and encouraging. And I really look forward to coming to one of your retreats. My girls keep asking me to do a retreat. And I'm like, I don't have the time or the energy. Let's just go to SheRecovers.
That's right. Exactly. We would love to have you.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thanks for everything that you do for the recovery community. You do so much. So thank you for your passion and your commitment and dedication as well.
It's my honor. Thank you so much. Listen, you have a great day. We'll talk soon. Thanks.
You too. Bye.
Okay, bye.